Today we're discussing Guillain-Barré Syndrome, or GBS, which is an acute autoimmune disorder affecting the peripheral nervous system. GBS is often described as a short circuit of the nerves because the immune system attacks the myelin surrounding peripheral nerves, disrupting normal signal transmission. This damage causes rapidly progressive muscle weakness, sensory changes, and loss of reflexes. One of the hallmark patterns is ascending paralysis, meaning weakness usually starts in the legs and moves upward. This condition can progress quickly and may become life-threatening if respiratory muscles become involved. The good news is that many patients recover with early recognition, intensive monitoring, and supportive care. Guillain-Barré Syndrome is also known as Acute Idiopathic Polyneuritis. The primary problem is immune-mediated demyelination of peripheral nerves. As the myelin becomes damaged, nerve conduction slows or becomes blocked. Clinically, this produces the classic triad of ascending weakness, sensory disturbances such as paresthesias, and diminished or absent reflexes. GBS is relatively rare, occurring in about 1 to 2 people per 100,000 annually, and it affects males and females equally. Even though most patients recover, this is still considered a neurologic emergency because mortality can range from 5 to 10%, often related to respiratory failure, autonomic instability, sepsis, or pulmonary embolism. One encouraging point is that approximately 70% of patients recover fully with proper treatment and rehabilitation. One of the most important concepts in Guillain-Barré syndrome is that it commonly follows an infection. About 60 to 70% of cases occur 1 to 3 weeks after a viral or bacterial illness. Common bacterial triggers include Campylobacter jejuni, which is one of the strongest associations, along with Mycoplasma pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. Common viral triggers include cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus, and Zika virus. The immune system initially responds to the infection, but through a process called molecular mimicry, the antibodies mistakenly attack peripheral nerve myelin because the infectious proteins resemble components of the nerve tissue. That immune cross-reaction is what drives the neurologic damage seen in GBS. Let's walk step by step through how Guillain-Barré syndrome actually develops. Step 1 begins with an infection. A bacterial or viral illness introduces foreign proteins into the body, triggering a normal immune response. In step 2, molecular mimicry occurs. The infectious proteins resemble proteins found within peripheral nerve myelin. The immune system becomes confused, and in step 3, antibodies begin attacking the body's own Schwann cells and peripheral myelin. Finally, in step 4, demyelination occurs. As the myelin sheath is stripped away, nerve conduction slows dramatically or becomes blocked entirely. That disruption in nerve signaling produces weakness, sensory abnormalities, and loss of reflexes. An important clinical point is that prognosis depends heavily on whether the axon itself remains intact. If only myelin is damaged, remyelination and recovery are often very successful. However, if axonal damage occurs, recovery becomes much slower and may be incomplete. The hallmark feature of Guillain-Barré syndrome is ascending weakness. Symptoms usually begin in the lower extremities with weakness, paresthesias, and diminished or absent reflexes. As the disease progresses upward, patients may develop severe weakness involving the trunk, chest, and respiratory muscles. This is the danger zone because diaphragm and intercostal muscle involvement can rapidly lead to respiratory failure. Cranial nerve involvement may also occur. Patients can develop dysphagia, impaired secretion clearance, facial weakness, or visual disturbances depending on which cranial nerves are affected. Another major concern is autonomic dysfunction. Patients may experience rapid swings in heart rate and blood pressure, including tachycardia, bradycardia, hypertension, or orthostatic hypotension. Neuropathic pain is also very common. One very important distinction is that cognitive status remains intact. These patients are fully awake and aware, even while becoming profoundly weak. Although classic ascending paralysis is the most common presentation, Guillain-Barré syndrome has several clinical variants. The classic form begins in the legs and progresses upward, involving both motor and sensory function. The pure motor variant produces weakness without sensory loss. The descending variant is less common and begins in the head and neck muscles first. These patients are particularly dangerous because respiratory compromise may occur early. One important subtype is the Miller-Fisher variant. This variant is recognized by the hallmark triad of ophthalmoplegia, ataxia, and areflexia. Ophthalmoplegia refers to paralysis of the eye muscles. Ataxia reflects impaired coordination, and areflexia means absent reflexes. Understanding these variants is important because not every patient presents with the classic ascending pattern, and atypical presentations can delay diagnosis if clinicians are not careful. Diagnosing Guillain-Barré syndrome requires combining the clinical picture with objective findings. Clinically, patients usually present with symmetric weakness that progresses over time. Reflexes are typically diminished or completely absent, which is one of the classic hallmark findings. Another important clue is a recent infection occurring 1 to 3 weeks before symptom onset. Many patients describe a recent respiratory illness or gastrointestinal infection before the neurological symptoms began. Objective testing helps confirm the diagnosis. Lumbar puncture often reveals albuminocytologic dissociation, meaning elevated CSF protein with a normal white blood cell count. Electrophysiology studies show slowed nerve conduction velocity due to demyelination, and respiratory mechanics must be monitored continuously. Vital capacity and inspiratory force can decline before visible respiratory distress appears, making early monitoring absolutely critical. Management of Guillain-Barré syndrome centers around aggressive supportive care and early immune therapy. Supportive ICU care comes first because respiratory failure can develop rapidly. Patients may require elective intubation before complete respiratory collapse occurs. Continuous ECG monitoring is necessary because autonomic dysfunction can cause dangerous fluctuations in heart rate and blood pressure. These patients are also at high risk for complications related to immobility, including pressure injuries and venous thromboembolism. So positioning, skin care, and VTE prophylaxis are extremely important. Disease-specific therapy focuses on stopping the autoimmune attack. IV immunoglobulin, or IVIG, works by neutralizing circulating autoantibodies. Plasmapheresis directly removes those harmful antibodies from the bloodstream. Both therapies are effective, but combining them generally does not improve outcomes further. This slide highlights the 3 major nursing priorities in Guillain-Barré syndrome. The first side of the triangle is respiratory integrity. Nurses must closely monitor vital capacity and inspiratory force because respiratory failure may progress silently. Incentive spirometry, chest physiotherapy, and readiness for mechanical ventilation are all essential interventions. The second side is autonomic stability. These patients can experience sudden cardiac arrhythmias and dramatic swings in blood pressure. Continuous monitoring is necessary because instability can occur without warning. The final side is bulbar protection. Weakness involving swallowing and airway clearance creates a major aspiration risk. Frequent suctioning and strict aspiration precautions become critical components of nursing care. Together, respiratory monitoring, autonomic management, and airway protection form the foundation of life-saving nursing care in Guillain-Barré syndrome. As Guillain-Barré syndrome progresses, profound weakness and immobility place the patient at high risk for secondary complications. One major nursing focus is skin and mobility protection. Passive range of motion exercises, careful positioning, and extremity support help reduce contractures and maintain joint integrity. Because these patients are often immobile for prolonged periods, aggressive DVT and pulmonary embolism prevention is essential through anticoagulation, hydration, and compression devices. Pressure injury prevention is another priority. Frequent repositioning, padding, and meticulous skin assessments are necessary to protect vulnerable tissue. Nutritional defense is equally important. Paralytic ileus may occur due to autonomic dysfunction, so nurses must monitor bowel function closely and prepare for IV or parenteral nutritional support if needed. If bulbar weakness interferes with swallowing, gastrostomy feedings may become necessary, and oral feeding should only resume when swallowing and gag reflexes safely return. Finally, fatigue management becomes part of daily care planning. Patients need deliberate pacing of activities, structured rest periods, and energy conservation strategies because even minimal exertion may dramatically worsen exhaustion. One of the most emotionally difficult aspects of Guillain-Barré syndrome is that cognition usually remains completely intact while the body progressively weakens. Patients are often fully aware of everything happening around them, but may lose the ability to communicate effectively. That is why establishing a communication bridge becomes one of the highest psychosocial priorities. Communication boards, eye blink systems, assistive technology, and alternative communication methods should be introduced early, especially when bulbar weakness affects speech. The psychosocial impact on both the patient and family can be profound. Severe anxiety, fear, and emotional distress are common during paralysis and recovery. Nurses play a major role in emotional support by involving family members in care routines, encouraging social connection, and providing clear education about the disease course and expected recovery timeline. Emotional reassurance becomes just as important as physical care. Recovery from Guillain-Barré syndrome is often slow and requires long-term rehabilitation. Patients and families must understand the timeline reality. Recovery usually occurs over months, not days. Even after the acute crisis resolves, patients may continue experiencing weakness, fatigue, and functional limitations for an extended period. This phase requires a strong interdisciplinary team approach. Physical therapy helps rebuild strength and mobility. Occupational therapy focuses on restoring independence with daily activities. Speech therapy may remain necessary for swallowing and communication support. Care pathways must also transition appropriately from inpatient rehabilitation to outpatient therapy or structured home programs. Education during this phase should emphasize energy conservation, realistic expectations, and the importance of ongoing follow-up care. Recovery can be lengthy, but with aggressive rehabilitation and support, many patients regain substantial function over time. The prognosis for Guillain-Barré syndrome varies depending on the severity of nerve injury and how quickly treatment begins. The encouraging news is that approximately 70% of patients achieve substantial or complete recovery with rapid treatment and aggressive rehabilitation. However, about 30% of patients experience some degree of residual neurological disability. This is more likely when significant axonal damage occurs during the acute phase, leading to slower or incomplete nerve recovery. Mortality remains between 5 and 10%, most commonly related to respiratory failure, severe sepsis, pulmonary embolism, or autonomic instability. This is why early recognition, respiratory monitoring, and intensive supportive care are absolutely critical in improving outcomes. As patients recover from Guillain-Barré syndrome, several key milestones help indicate a return toward physiological baseline. One major milestone is restored independent respiratory function with improved vital capacity. Patients also gradually regain independent mobility as nerve conduction slowly improves over time. Another important marker is the return of safe oral nutrition and hydration without assistance or aspiration risk. Communication abilities also improve as bulbar weakness resolves. Psychologically, reduced anxiety and improved fatigue tolerance signal important progress during rehabilitation. And finally, successful recovery includes avoiding major secondary complications, such as pressure injuries and deep vein thrombosis. Recovery is often gradual, but these milestones help guide both rehabilitation goals and long-term patient expectations. Guillain-Barré syndrome is an acute autoimmune demyelinating polyneuropathy that usually follows a viral or bacterial infection. The hallmark finding is ascending symmetrical weakness with diminished or absent reflexes. The biggest immediate threat is respiratory failure, making continuous monitoring of vital capacity and inspiratory force essential. Diagnosis is supported by elevated CSF protein with normal white blood cell count and slowed nerve conduction studies. Treatment centers on IVIG or plasmapheresis, along with aggressive ICU-level supportive care. Patients remain fully conscious throughout the illness, which makes communication support and psychosocial care extremely important. Most patients recover significantly over time, but rehabilitation often requires months of intensive, multidisciplinary therapy.